Welcome to Decision Making on the District Level, the Lions University course brought to you by the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum. My name is Lion Budwall, and I would like to welcome you to this evening's webinar and remind you that we are recording this session for those who cannot participate live or for anyone wishing to review the material at a later time. Once we begin, you may be asked to respond to a question, or you may have a question yourself, and this can be handled either by typing your name or your question in the questions pane in the panel along the right side of your screen, or by raising your hand or clicking on your hand so you can be unmuted, giving you the opportunity to share verbally with the entire group. Decision making on the district level is course 226, an elective course for the Lions University Master's Program that's designed to help Lions lead at the district level. The Master's Program involves the completion of the 10 required courses listed on the left side of your page, and at least 5 of the elective courses that are listed on the right side of your screen. This is the Lions University website, lionsuniversity.org, and this slide shows a page in the bachelor's program listing the courses offered in that level. The master's program page would have a similar page, but would include the courses in the master's program. If you were to click on any of the courses listed on the page, you would then be taken directly to that particular course page, giving you all the details for that course, along with a link to register for the course and links to any course handouts and the quiz. We even have a calendar page you can click on to see what courses are scheduled in the weeks and months ahead. This slide shows what a course page typically would look like. It lists the course name and number, gives a description of the course, shows who the faculty member is, and gives you the links to the class and any course materials. If you haven't already done so, you will need to create a separate username and password to get in to register for the course and have access to the quiz. After participating in the webinar or watching the video of the webinar, you can click on the Mark as Completed tab on the bottom of the page there, and you will then be allowed to take the quiz. When you complete the quiz and submit your answers, you will instantly be given the results. You can then click on the My Account tab near the top of the page and see a first-hand view of the courses you've completed in both the bachelor and the master level program. Our faculty member this evening is Lion Jama Wall. Lion Jama is the Global Leadership Coordinator for MD1 Illinois, and is also the area GLT for Area C, which covers not only Illinois, but also Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. She is responsible for the multiple district governor-elect training of the DGEs from Illinois, and was instrumental in developing a regional Lions Leadership Institute for the state. Lion Jama has been a faculty member for the master's program on 2 previous occasions, having presented leadership styles and using diplomacy. She has also been a presenter on the district and multiple district level, as well as at the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum, and is a faculty member for many LCI institutes and conventions. She comes to Lions University as a well-qualified instructor with a wealth of knowledge, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome her tonight. Lion Jama, welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, PID Bud, for your introduction and your explanation of how Lions University works. I want to thank you and your colleagues for your continued efforts to bring meaningful learning opportunities to Lions around the world. This evening, we're discussing decision making on the district level. Before we can get to this topic, we have to come to common ground regarding what decision making is. The businessdictionary.com suggests the following definition: the thought process of selecting a logical choice from the available options. When trying to make a good decision, a person must weigh the positives and negatives of each option and consider all the alternatives. For effective decision making, a person must be able to forecast the outcome of each option as well, and based on all of these items, determine which option is the best for that particular situation. The happy manager suggests the following definition. Decision making is the process of making a choice between a number of options and committing to a future course of action. Their research goes on to clarify that having a clear definition of decision making can help better decisions to be made. Comparing both definitions, there's common verbiage: process, options, choice, and action. So let's take a closer look at these four elements. There are instances when a decision is made when a person simply makes up his or her own mind and moves forward. These are the day-to-day decisions that are less complicated. More complex decisions take a bit more consideration. But before we move on, let's identify the goals for our time this evening. First, we'll define decision making. We'll consider the process, options, choice, and action of decision making. We will review some common decision-making models and mechanisms, and finally, apply our knowledge to decision-making at the district level. As noted in the Happy Manager, options are any decision process that should ensure sufficient options are generated to enable a decision. Decision-making involves deciding where you are and where you want to go. Options are then generated to show you how to get there. Making a decision without sufficient options is an easy mistake to make. So always try to generate as many quality options as possible. Without a good range of options, choice becomes very stifled. And without any options, there is no decision. It's really an ultimatum. Let's look at choices. Choices can be difficult to make. In making a decision, you'll probably rely on much input from numerous sources, and you'll certainly need to address a range of factors. Input will include your own experience, knowledge, common sense, and judgment, as well as that of the others involved in the decision. Choices are typically made within constraints. For example, the goals and priorities of the organization and of your team will no doubt shape your choices. Constraints provide the boundaries within which decisions have to be made. Therefore, clarity about goals or objectives is essential for making better choices. Of course, the decision may well need to address several objectives, so analysis and prioritization is important. Making a decision is rarely easy, and is often a compromise between what is really wanted, the ideal, and what can actually be done. It's rare that anyone has a completely free hand in making choices. However, it's always worth asking yourself, if there were no constraints, what would the choice be? And the last element in the definition of decision-making is perhaps the most important. A decision, even though well made, is pointless without action. Decision-making is about the future, about looking forward. Making a choice should move things forward to action. This definition of decision-making can help to provide focus. As an example, to focus on how to select the most appropriate actions at the least cost and with the most advantages. Actions have consequences, both intended and unintended. The consequences can be detrimental or favorable to your objectives. It's therefore crucial to consider both the positive and negative effects which might result from your decision. Then, put a plan in place to eliminate or limit the adverse effects and capitalize on favorable consequences. A simple action plan determines the goal, the who will do what by when. Now, let's take a closer look at types of decision making. According to Tony Bowman from the Aurora Project back in 2012, majority decision making process is the one that most people support. The majority is often identified by voting or a show of hands. Common issues in majority decision making is that the majority isn't necessarily always right. People may feel they have to follow others, including family members, if voting is public, like in a show of hands. The result can depend on who's in the room. Meetings can sometimes be stacked. It can be hard to tell people in front of others that they don't have a right to vote. An example might be when the decision is at the board of directors level on a Lions Club, but a club member feels he or she should have a vote on the topic. Groups with the biggest numbers can have an advantage when it comes to majority decision making. No work may be done in trying to reach the goal of agreement. The process can be adversarial and sometimes argumentative. It can give rise to competing factions and split the group. Decisions can be made quickly, but they probably won't last. And those who don't agree may be unhappy and work against the decision, causing disputes and unrest. The process has limited use when people can't agree, but people may agree to use it as a last resort. So let's make an application. When might a district governor use majority decision making? Please share your thoughts, type in your answers, raise your hand, and if you're going to speak to us, be sure you have access to a microphone.
We'll give everyone a minute or so to see if you have any ideas or suggestions on when a district governor might use majority decision making. Go ahead and type that in the question pane if you'd like, or if you want to address everyone here, raise your hand and we will unmute you. And what do we have here?
Location of a meeting event. That would be that could be a possibility. Maybe you have 2 or 3 choices within for your upcoming event or your upcoming meeting, and so a majority rule might be what the club president uses. It might be what a district governor uses in this instance to make a decision about that. That's a good answer. Thanks, Don, for sharing that.
Yep. Anyone else have anything to add for this particular question? We'll have Jama has plenty of opportunities to be involved tonight with questions very similar to this. So if you don't have something right now, I'm sure you'll be able to share something with us a little bit later.
Another time when a district governor might use the majority decision making is when you accept minutes or reports. Oftentimes we use that majority rule at our cabinet meetings.
Okay.
The next type of decision making we'll consider is hierarchical. This type of decision making is top down. The boss, or the district governor, can gather ideas from others, but the decision stops at that desk. It's up to the boss. Common issues in this type of decision making is that it may disempower the rest of the group and leave people thinking that they have no right or voice to voice their opinion or to say what they think. It may not take all issues into account and overlook concerns. Sometimes it might not work to build group strength and relationships. Its usefulness depends on the type of decision to be made. We may ignore the interests of younger or less experienced people. If there's a leadership team, the team may not always agree, so another process might need to be found. There could be disputes over who is the boss or who is the leader. People who don't like the decision may be upset, particularly if they think it's a poor decision. People may feel they have no way of changing a poor decision. Some people may never get to be the decision makers. The leader making the decision can become the target for the unhappiness of others. So, when might a district governor use this top-down model for decision making? Take a little bit to think about it, type in your answers or raise your hand, and if you'd like to share with us, Bud will unmute you.
All right, again, we'll just give 30 seconds to a minute to see if anyone has any suggestions on when to use this type of decision-making process. I don't see anybody coming up with anything yet. Do you, Jamie?
No. There's no, oh, here we go. To end a stalemate in the process. I would agree with you. Sometimes the person that's the boss, the person that the district governor, the buck stops there during that particular year of leadership. If you have a stalemate going on, if there's really two different factions, sometimes that decision has to be made, and it has to be made in a timely manner. It has to be made so that action can move forward. So that would be one example to end a stalemate. Another one might be when there's a crisis in the situation, as applying for an emergency grant. Emergency grants are available, that they have to be from a district governor. The paperwork has to go through the district governor, and it's available only for a certain amount of time. So at that point, this decision-making process would probably be very effective in getting that situation addressed.
See, Lion John has come up with
a decision to cancel a meeting because of weather. Absolutely. Right now in Illinois, the weather's not too bad, but I know in other places the weather has been horrendous. So sometimes you have to say this is where the decision made, and it's not safe for people to travel. That's another good example. Thanks, John, for sharing that.
Okay.
The next one we'll take a look at is proportional decision making. Proportional decision making is used when a person or a group has a greater say than others about issues over particular areas. They may have stronger connections than others with the area, or they may be more affected by the decision. Some common issues in proportional decision making: those most affected have a greater say. The interests of smaller groups with greater interests can be discounted, and those with the smaller say may argue that they are just as effective. If one group or individual has a greater say, this may have an influence on the solidarity of the broader group, and it may lead to splintering of the whole group. So what are your thoughts on how this might affect a district governor? When might a district governor use this or need to be thinking about this when making decisions? You can raise your hand or type a thought in.
So far, we've had some pretty good suggestions for the prior to decision-making processes. Now we have the waiting on the proportional decision-making. See if anyone has any thoughts or ideas there. I don't see anybody coming up with anything yet, but we'll give them another 10 seconds, see if anyone is just taking a little bit of extra time typing in.
Oh, redistricting decision making.
Lying Dawn.
That's an interesting choice. Redistricting may, in this case, I'm going to try to explain it the way I understand it, and Dawn, if you want to type in something else, by all means, go ahead. But in redistricting, it may be that the sub-districts are affected by the larger multiple districts' decision to redistrict. They may feel as though their points of view aren't heard, may feel as though they are not a part of the decision-making process. So in this case, it would be very important for those decision makers, whether it be the district governor or a team from the multiple district, to be sure that everyone's voices were heard, because we know that when decisions are made, it's very important that all voices are heard. This also, I'll bring it down to a district level, if zones are being changed or altered, so that you have a more even number of clubs being seen by a zone chairman, or maybe you're changing so that you have a little bit better travel arrangements for the zone chair or region chair. If clubs don't feel as though they're part of that decision, they might not be happy. So again, it's really important for the leader to make sure that gets shared and presented.
You mean those clubs may not attend the zone meetings?
Well, they might get their feelings hurt and might not attend, and we want to make sure that everybody attends. We want to make sure that everybody feels warm and welcome to all of our Lions events. Thanks, Dawn, for sharing that. Consensus decision making. Consensus decision making is when a decision is reached by the group as a whole. Everybody agrees in the end, and the process tries to help everyone get what they need. Some features of consensus decision making are that you need to make sure that the rules are out there in the first place. You need to define that clearly in terms of how the decision is going to be made. The process of reaching the decision is just as important as the outcome. So all of the information that's shared, all of the thoughts, the brainstorming, all of that is just as important as the outcome. The process requires working together and really talking to each other about all of the issues. And I would add also listening. We know it's important to share your ideas, but it's also very important to listen to the thoughts of others to make sound and good decisions. As many people who have interest in the decision as possible are involved. So if we went back to those examples of the zone chair or the redistricting, there would need to, if you were going to come to consensus, you would need to have a lot more discussion and a lot more talk to get to that final answer. People have to work together and contribute ideas as well as solutions. There has to be a buy-in. For consensus decision making, all those involved have an equal chance to suggest and change proposals and participate in the decision-making process. So that means no matter what your Lion's title is, no matter what initials are before or after your name, everybody is equal as a Lion. Decisions try to meet the concerns of all group members as much as possible. Underlying issues, as well as issues that everyone can see, are dealt with. Everyone agrees that the group's needs are seen as more important than those of any single person. In consensus decision making, it won't always be everyone's first choice, but the final decision will come as close as possible to meeting everyone's needs. And this decision may involve a great deal of compromise on all sides. People agree that they can live with the outcome. People own the decision because they have a hand in it, and therefore decisions are more likely to last. In consensus decision-making, processes are best managed by an independent facilitator or a facilitator that could put his or her own personal feelings aside to make things happen, meaning one who doesn't have an agenda. Processes can be intensive, but much more likely to be sustainable. Let me say that one again. Consensus can be time-intensive, but much more likely to be sustainable. It will take you longer to get to a good consensus decision, but it will be a decision that lasts. So give me some examples of some consensus-making decisions you would see in your Alliance experience.
All right, again, you can either type in the questions pane or raise your hand if you have something to share that might take a little bit more time than just typing in.
Dawn suggests using the focus group proportional decision making to flesh out the issues and needs to start, and then bring it out to this level for the final redistricting. Okay, so you're suggesting a little bit of a compromise. You're suggesting that the proportional decision making be used to flesh out the issues and concerns, then bring that together to get consensus at that final level. Okay, a multi-step process. And actually, in reality, many decisions involve a little bit of each one of these. They don't always stay so separate. In the examples that we talk about tonight, that we've given, we've kind of made them separate. But Dawn's right on target, and then it may take a little bit of each type of decision making.
Okay.
And an example that I want to share with you on this consensus making, and it comes from our district governor-elect area GMT and GLT training. Those governors going in have been asked to develop their leadership goals and action plans and their membership goals and action plans, but they're expected to communicate with the second vice district governor, the GMT, the GLT, the sitting governor to develop these goals. So the final document sits at the table of the district governor-elect, but the consensus has been developed by working with all the leaders within that particular district, specifically talking to zone chairs and to region chairs to make sure that everybody's thoughts and ideas are taken into effect to develop these leadership plans and these membership plans.
Line Dawn also adds that the Centennial Legacy Project could be an example of a consensus decision making, either on the club level or the district level, because there are district level legacy projects that districts can be involved in too as well. So,
and I would suggest to you that if we want our legacy projects to work, if we want any of our projects to work, whether it's a service project or a fundraising project, the more buy-in that you can get, the more consensus that you can build so that people know and understand what it is, the more likely you have success in your decision making and in the success of your project.
Right, because a lot of times you'll have several options to choose from, and you may be looking to make that decision on and just choosing one. So it's important to get that consensus in all of those areas, get a buy-in from everyone, and come up with the one that relates to most everybody's interests. Okay.
The next thing I'd like to share with you is actually a handout, and again, I can't take credit for it. It comes from a Wikipedia document, and I'm going to suggest to you that the slide was too.
No, we don't have it on there.
No, we don't have it on there. We don't have it on because the slide was too complicated. It was too small to get onto a slide. But in this process, it's actually a flow chart of how decisions can be made. And it starts out with discussion, and that would be discussion, since this is about the district at the district level, about possibly a project or possibly an idea that someone has. And then from that discussion, it moves into a proposal. Actually, what could we possibly do? What might we do? Test for consensus. If you're the district governor and you have a new idea out there that's been brought to you, or maybe you've developed yourself, you want to find out from other people in your district, in leadership positions, as well as just Jane and Joe Lyons. How do they feel about this? Can you build consensus? And if you can, then that's a yes, and you move forward with developing your action plan, setting your goals, developing your action plan to make your good decision. If you can't really develop consensus, then you have to go back and address the concerns that are raised and maybe modify your proposal. And if that's the case, then you take it back up, test for some consensus again, and hope that, yes, you've made modifications and you're going to come down to having some good action. If it raises concerns and the modified proposal still isn't what people want, then you need to go back to the discussion stage and revise that proposal so that the decision can be made to be the most effective and provide the most for those people who we're serving, as well as making it meaningful within our clubs. And I would encourage you to take a look at the handout. I kind of talked you through it, but I think with the squares and the arrows, you can figure out how that would work best for you.
Yeah, that handout is on the course page in the Lions University website. Just go to the decision-making course, and it'll be listed there as the course handout. You can just click on that. You can print it off and use that.
The tipster suggests the following ideas for decision-making in groups. And if you are the district governor, you are definitely a leader of numerous groups, and you are also a part of many teams and many committees. And so sometimes you'll be a part of that decision-making group, and sometimes it will stop at your desk. So decision-making is one of the toughest parts of any innovation process, especially when working on complex challenges in a group context. A leader can substantially ease this process by specifying the decision-making process that he or she is planning to use. In other words, tell them ahead of time how this decision is going to be made. To do this, the leader announces at the beginning of the discussion how the decision will be reached, as well as how much and what kind of participation is expected from the rest of the group. Below are 6 kinds of group decision-making processes and the pros and cons for each. Unanimous. Unanimous decisions occur when all agree without reservation. They are easier for trivial matters, which we mentioned before, but they're very difficult for important and high-pressure situations. If you are the leader, you're the district governor, you need to be careful not to confuse unanimity with consensus. So we need to make sure that if things are unanimous, there is also that consensus. Consensus, each person agrees to support the decision. Though all may not agree, they give his or her consent. Despite offering perspectives, all agree that they can live with the decision. Consensus is the process most likely to ensure that each person involved feels valued, heard, and considered. And consensus can take a lot of facilitation on the part of the leader to be sure that everyone is heard. It's very easy when you're leading a discussion to let that person in the back not participate. So if you're looking for consensus and you're not getting the discussion that you need, you might need to use some other tools like brainstorming or using the little dots to build consensus. Majority rule decisions are made when more than half the group votes in favor. This process is used frequently in democracies and rarely in organizations. Majority decisions, as with any voting situation, the risk is that you won't have full support and that those not in agreement with the majority may do something less than helpful later. It also carries the possibility of establishing the us versus them mentality. We talked a little bit about the expert. In this scenario, the group delegates the decision responsibility to an expert or a small subgroup. And this type of process is good for situations that don't require the entire group's participation. In an executive decision, the leader makes the call. And most decisions are executive, and probably should be. The big mistake is often that the kind and amount of participation leading up to this kind of decision making isn't what it should be. The executive who makes the best decisions makes sure that everyone involved has had a chance to be heard. This approach is critical when dealing with issues such as a team vision or mission. So as district governor, it's very, very critical that you have everyone's voices heard. Default. In this scenario, a decision is made by action or inaction that focuses on a conclusion. It's really a powerless form of decision making and best avoided. So don't let that happen during your year of leadership. And now we'll take a look at some mechanisms that can help you make good decisions. Polling can help determine where people are feeling about an issue without requiring anyone to commit him or herself to anything. Leaders might do this by asking a question. If you were to decide right now, how many of you would favor doing option 1? Sometimes it's called taking a straw poll. You can assign accountability. Once a decision is made by whatever mechanism, it's important that everyone know what is expected of them and how they're going to be held responsible by understanding the actions required, the due dates, the budgets, all those pieces that help us make decisions. Leaders must also assign authority to each individual to react and act within their respective area of responsibility. And everything will be delegated upward for decision making. So in other words, everybody has a job, they have to do the job, they have to get it done, and they have to make sure it gets sent up the trail, up the ladder of command. And we also need to make sure that we know how to manage conflict escalation. Murphy's Law says that if something's going to go wrong, it will. So it's important to have a conflict escalation management procedure in place for two reasons. First, it's a mechanism for resolving disputes between peers. And second, if things do go wrong, it's a means of keeping senior management informed, and escalation can be built on a case-by-case basis. So with our new knowledge, let's consider some decisions that are typically made for and with lions at the district level. Type in your ideas as to decisions you think a district governor will make, as a district governor-elect will make, as he or she prepares to become a district governor, and then we can discuss them. You can raise your hand and Bud will unmute you, or you can just type in an idea. Goals for the district governor year. That's exactly right. Dawn, you've given us a lot of really nice answers today. Thank you. In this case, goals for the district governor year, they will be required to have some leadership goals and membership goals by LCI, and those have to be submitted for those of you who are looking to move up that rank. And deciding how you want to manage your year in terms of there's management goals you'll have. Those you don't have to submit, but there's other activities that you'll have to have. So your goals for the year as a district governor, those are probably the biggest piece of work that you'll have to do. How about any other suggestions?
So we're trying to think of some decisions that you will have to make as you plan for your year as a district governor. So as you're the district governor-elect or the first vice district governor, what are some things that you will be required to make decisions on for your upcoming year? We've covered the one with Dawn, and we've got a few more coming up here. It's nice. We've got a lot of good ideas.
Actually, cabinet members was the next one I had on my list.
Yeah, cabinet members.
Determining who will be on your cabinet. One of the things that I hope that district governor-elects or first vice district governors will do will look at who's doing a good job on the cabinet, who is being effective, who is meeting all the expectations of the governor, or is this person the kind of person that says no report, or absent from the meeting. If this person is effective, then by all means, keep them involved and keep them active. But if they're not effective, a very difficult decision that has to be made might be whether or not that person should be on the cabinet, or if they need to be in a different position on the cabinet. Could they stay on the cabinet with a little bit of support from somebody else? Do they understand their role and responsibility? Sometimes people are put on a cabinet, but they don't really know what it is to be chairperson of this committee or chair of this event. And so they don't understand the responsibilities of what it takes to be a region chair or a zone chair. So we need to be sure that as the leader, we communicate that and make sure that those folks make a solid decision to stay in that position, or you have to have the conversations of moving people into different positions or getting someone new on the cabinet. So please, by all means, be sure that you make that decision. Also see on here budget. Yes, when you're making decisions about your budget, good person to consider would be your cabinet secretary treasurer or your cabinet treasurer, but whoever is involved in your particular district. Make sure that you take a good look at past practices and what have worked, what items have worked, what items have been successful. Do you need to reallocate funds? Do you have all your line items in place? And are you in a good financial situation? And again, you can't come back from being at District Governor-elect School and the International Convention and say, oh, now I better develop my budget. These are conversations that need to be had early so that you can make sure that you have a solid budget in place. You need to make sure that you're talking to the current governor, maybe best practices and past practices within your particular district, but definitely your cabinet secretary, treasurer, or your cabinet treasurer. What about communication? How are you as a district governor going to communicate with different people on your cabinet? What types of decisions do you need to share with them? And then what kind of communication will you have in terms of the decisions that are made? You need to have a communication process. How do you get all of your information that's decided at the cabinet level out to the appropriate people, out to the zones, out to the regions, out to the Lions clubs and the individual Lions? There's so much that can happen for our communities. We need to make sure that we communicate in a clear process. So you as a district governor-elect need to think about how you want to communicate clearly. Definitely talk with your cabinet secretary, talk with your current governor, talk with your region chairs, zone chairs, and determine what is a good, the GMT, the GLT.
Your district IT person.
Yeah, and your district IT person. Because they're the people that can really get things out quickly. I would suggest to you, since I'm not seeing another idea, that the most critical decision that you would make as a district governor-elect are who your zone chairs will be and who your cabinet secretary, treasurer, person, or people will be. Zone chairs, please, when you're making that decision, look at the roles and responsibilities and the expectations that are provided by LCI, and look at the people that you want to have in those positions, and then look at, are they actually going to move up? Are they actually going to become a second vice district governor, first vice district governor, on up to that district governor position? It's okay for somebody to be in that position for a while, but we don't want folks to be there so long that we don't have a good leadership pool. So make sure that you select a zone chair who's going to be able to keep a pulse on those 6 or 7 clubs so that you know what's going on with those clubs, even though you only make a visit with them, maybe once a year or maybe at a zone meeting. You really need to have those zone chairs out there and working for you. And your cabinet secretary treasurer helps not only with communication, but definitely with your finances and your budget. Any other examples? We talked a little bit about where and when your cabinet meetings will be held and when your convention is. I would suggest please get that out early. The earlier that you can get that information decided, those decisions made, if you can provide that information at the very earliest stages of your year as district governor, you'll promote it and you'll have a much better attendance because people will know about it and want to be a part of it. We also then talked about leadership goals and membership goals. And those decisions that you make regarding leadership and membership, those are not just acts of doing work on paper and then it sits on a shelf. Those goals and action plans are actual documents that hopefully there'll be some reporting on at your cabinet meetings as to the success of them. Where are you? What are you doing? What do we need to continue to do to meet these goals?
We have just a little bit of time. If you want to try that one scenario that we talked about, and on here about the zone chair.
Oh, okay. Here we go. What would you do in this situation? You are the incoming district governor-elect, and you have heard through the Lions grapevine a club in a neighboring region is considering dissolving and turning in their charter at the end of the Lions year. The zone chair for this club has been in this position for several years. When asked by the district governor about the rumor, the zone chair said that this club has been struggling for a long time and will just keep going along like they always do. As the incoming district governor, what decisions need to be made and who needs to be involved in the decision making? So what are your thoughts on that?
Now, obviously, there's a lot of different things that you need to consider on this, but you can go ahead and type in anything that you have for thoughts and we'll share.
One response, Dawn, is pretty straightforward. Fire the zone chair. Yeah, that would probably be something that I would consider, definitely. Maybe have some discussions with the zone chair about why he or she hasn't been doing the job. Long-time person or problem. So yes, in this situation, the zone chair is the person who's been in that position. The club has been struggling for a while, and we talked about, ignoring things doesn't make them go away. So in this situation, I think definitely you need to have some conversations to replace the zone chair, and you might also need to have some conversations with your GMT to get a group together, or at least make contact with that particular club to see if the rumors are true and what can we do to help you out. And sometimes clubs can be built up and rebuilt during a struggling time just by people taking time to go talk to them and help them develop their own plans and where they'd like to go, and reminding them of all the good that they've done.
That's right. We have two issues here. You got the issue of the zone chairman not doing his or her job, and then you also have the issue of the club, the struggling club, how to resolve each one of those issues on different levels.
John shared with us the first thing that he would do is to get a certified guiding lion team into the club and help them heal. I like the idea of heal. Sometimes there have been issues in the club, something has caused them to kind of fall apart. So if we can figure out what that concern is, and taking a certified guiding lion in there, that the certified guiding lion or that guiding lion team is made up of people that are qualified, that have been trained, that know how to work with clubs, and so that would be a really good possibility to take that team in there and help the club heal. Don also added a mediation or an intervention for the club and assign a rebuilding lion. Both of those are excellent ideas, because sometimes you do have clubs that have had some squabbles and they just need an opportunity to voice, and having an outside person, having somebody that's not a part of their club to facilitate that discussion can be a very, very, very powerful mechanism. Anybody else have anything that you want to share?
Yeah, and you just don't know what the issue could be with the club, so you can't really go in there with any predetermined way of resolving any issues, because it could be something internally, it could be something where they're just down to 4 or 5 members and they're all 75 or 80 years old and they're just all tired and don't know what to do at that point. So you have to go in there with an open mind and try to do the best you can. What else do we have here?
Let the club know they matter. Dawn suggests let the club know they matter, and I'll tell you a story, and this happened a long time ago. There was a club in our district that was sort of falling apart, and the governor did find out and sent a team there, and in one night they just talked about all the things that they did to the community, and they actually started writing them down on a flip chart. And in the end, you could just see that the club was really very proud of what they'd done, and they didn't want to let go of that. And so they said, well, then we need to get some new members. And then that opened the door to talking about membership, because they wanted to continue the service that they had done. And so by just making that little list that they could see, they felt that they mattered. Shelley suggests part of the training for certified guiding line include rebuilding. Also, the club quality initiative, the old CEP, is effective in helping to ask questions. Those tools are excellent ways to get dialogue started, and I can't do enough commercials for the tools that LCI provides. The community needs assessment, or the questionnaire, the needs assessment for the club, are all very powerful tools to get discussion started. And so sometimes it's important to provide those tools to help those clubs, make some decisions for themselves.
So it sounds like we have some pretty good ideas for the clubs, and the only idea we had for the zone chairman was to fire him. So
well, and maybe the zone chair will, in his or her defense, maybe we should mentor them or make sure they understood their responsibilities. And if they can be mentored and helped along, then that would be great. If not, then you might have to make that difficult decision to replace somebody. Because as a zone chair, they really are supposed to be the eyes and ears for the particular district governor.
Good responses.
Some final thoughts. Make the best decision possible with the information available. And don't second guess yourself. Make the decision and move ahead. It's always okay to reevaluate a decision if you have new information that comes to light, but don't backtrack with old information. Large decisions can be broken down to smaller ones that are more manageable and more time sensitive. So, have we reached our goals? Have we defined decision making? I think so. Have we talked about the process, options, choice, and action of decision making, as well as models and mechanisms? I think so. And you've applied your decisions at the district level. I have to say that I really appreciate the dialogue tonight. When you write a script for something like this and we have questions and there's this silence, it's always hard to sort of accept. So I really appreciate the fact that folks typed in some responses to the questions so that we were able to use them for our discussion tonight. So if you have any other comments or questions, just let me know, and I guess I can give you an email address. It's my whole name, jamawall@yahoo.com, and I'll answer any questions that I can about decision making. So I want to thank you for sharing your time and ideas this evening, and now I'm going to turn everything back over to Ryan Budd.
Well, thank you very much, Jama, and I really appreciate everything you've done for the webinar this evening, all your preparation and coming up with some scenarios and some questions that we can get the people involved. And it's always good to get some dialogue back and forth with the participants. So thank you for sharing your talents with us. And I want to remind everyone that as we did in Grand Rapids this past year, we will have another graduation at the USA Canada Forum in Omaha, Nebraska in September. And this is your opportunity to have a photo opportunity with our international president. Then it will be Bob Corlew and receive a diploma if you have not graduated from the bachelor's or the master's program. And you qualify this year, you will receive your certificate and a pin, one of the beautiful pins displayed down at the bottom of that slide. And new this year, we have kicked off the doctorate program. We had one or two classes at the forum in Nebraska, and some of those webinars will, Grand Rapids, not Nebraska, in Grand Rapids, and some more coming up this spring. So look forward to the doctorate program too as well. So we hope to see you at the forum in Nebraska in September. Our next scheduled webinar for the master's program is Parliamentary Procedure. That will be on Tuesday, March 1st. And you can register for that class at lionsuniversity.org. Just go to the calendar page or go to this particular course itself, Parliamentary Procedure, and you can click on the registration link and get all set to join us on Tuesday, March 1st. And again, that is at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For this particular webinar, you are now able to go online on the university.org website, go to the master's page and click on this course, Decision Making, course 226, and mark it completed, and you will be able to take the quiz and get your results immediately. So we wish you the best of luck with that. And you can take that at any time. You don't have to take it tonight. You can take it at any time, any time you wish, at your leisure. So with that, I want to thank you very much for being with us this evening, and we hope to see you again on future webinars for Lions University. And with that, bid you good night and see you soon, we hope.